Thinking about buying a condo in San Francisco, whether you're priced out of a single family home, want less maintenance, responsibilities, or maybe you're craving that amenity-rich lifestyle, condos are a popular choice. But before you sign on the dotted line, you need to know about these potential deal breakers. In the next few minutes, I'll reveal hidden pitfalls that could cost you additional unexpected expenses and show you inside one of SF's most sought after condo styles. All right, first up is not understanding the fees. The fees vary depending on the type of condo. Most people think of a high-rise community with hundreds of units when they think of a condo, but in San Francisco, we have several different types. The first and most beloved type are boutique historic condo buildings that are generally between 2 to 6 units and sometimes up to 12. Like the one I'm in now, what people love about these units is that they have character and aren't your typical white box with beautiful ornate details that you often find in single family homes in San Francisco. People really love this style of architecture. They also offer lower HOA dues, and in some cases the fees can be $0. We'll dive into this later in the video, but generally speaking, they do range between $250 to $450 a month. These types of condos are internally managed by the owners, and therefore you have a lot more autonomy on how things run in the building. In this condo that is part of a 2-unit HOA, the fees are $600 a month, and they cover water, trash, building maintenance, and insurance. It is important to note that this condo is much larger than the other unit, nearly doubling in size. This one's 3,300 square feet and the lower unit is about 1,500 square feet. And generally the HOA dues are determined by the size of your unit. The second type is the larger communities and new developments. These buildings typically have higher HOA dues ranging anywhere from $700 a month to $1,500 a month, but in some cases up to $3,000 a month for those extra luxe buildings like 181 Fremont or 1 Stewart Lane. These buildings are amenity rich with full-time concierge, valet parking, personal shoppers, and top of the line gyms, views, and finishes. These are professionally managed and are governed by an HOA that decides on the maintenance and repairs and financials and rules of the building. So you naturally will have less autonomy in these buildings for decisions that are made because there are so many units and the building is professionally managed by an outside company that maintains the maintenance and overall guidelines. Some people do prefer this type because they'd rather not be as involved and allow a professional to take care of things. However, there are more rules around rentals, pets, and renovations in these types of buildings. So when you're buying a condo, you'll need to factor in the HOA dues, as these are additional monthly costs on top of your mortgage and property taxes. So you'll want to make sure that while the purchase price is within budget, when you consider the HOA dues, how does that actually line up with your desired monthly house payment? HOA dues are also not fixed and can increase over time. So you will want to understand things like, when was the last time they increased the HOA dues? How much money is currently in the reserves to attempt at least to determine whether or not there may be an increase in assessments coming up so that you can properly budget for these things and plan for the future if and when they do decide to increase the dues. The second pitfall you'll want to consider is buying a condo as an investment. In San Francisco, condos don't appreciate as much as single family homes do. I think that's true for most parts of the country as well. And they also take longer to sell. For a lot of people, especially first-time buyers, condos can be seen as a foot into the door into home ownership because they generally are cheaper. But it is important to flag that condos often, and in some cases, don't appreciate very well. Today, condos are selling anywhere between 2015 to 2018 prices. This isn't true for all condos, but since the pandemic and the hike in interest rates, they have taken condos back quite a bit. That said, there is a calculation that a lot of folks don't like to consider if you're selling your condo and have gained no appreciation over time. And that calculation is the reality that you will get some of that money back that you paid into it, of course, minus the mortgage interest, contrary to renting, where all of that money is just going down the drain. So currently, the median days on the market today for a condo citywide is 58 days. in comparison to a single family home, which is 24 days on the market. So they also generally do take longer to sell, and time is money. A condo is not for everyone. Some people prefer not to be governed by an HOA and want full autonomy on their home. In a condo, you're buying into common areas and you have to rely on the co-owners or the board to upkeep the space. Whereas in a single family home, if there's something wrong or you simply want to make an aesthetic change, you can freely do that. In a condo, you have to get approval by the board, and you may not always be on the same page with your co-owners or the board's plans. So if the building isn't well kept, it can hurt the sale of your unit if you decide to sell down the road. When you walk into a condo building, you're generally walking into a common area first, and if it's not presenting well, it will hurt the sale, as that's the first impression. Some people are also concerned about who their co-owners will be, what their lifestyle is like, will you get along with them, how well will you make decisions together, and that sort of thing. And it's difficult to know in that much detail in advance, but there is some information in the disclosures, and you can always ask very thorough questions to the seller to find out as much as you can upfront on who the neighbors are and if there have been any issues with the neighbors in the past. And you can do this in advance of writing your offer. And with sharing walls in a condo, you do get overall less privacy in a single family home. So that's another reason why people generally don't prefer to buy into a condo. So this particular property is part of a 2-unit building, and it is one of those units that I described as sort of that boutique San Francisco historic charm style of a building. I like to call these types of units walk-ups because you actually walk into your front door versus walking into a common area. So it really gives you that single family home feel, although you are part of a 2-unit building. This particular unit is located on 23rd Street in Noe Valley, which is one of the most desirable neighborhoods in San Francisco. And to buy a single family home in this particular neighborhood for this level of finish, overall size, and views, it's very difficult to come by for under $3.5 million. This specific condo is priced at just shy of $2.8 million, and it's 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and spans 3,300 square feet, which is very large for a condo. Generally speaking, this size of a home is found in a single family home. So it's really a great single family home alternative. This unit has been remodeled in 2018, but what I love most is that they kept all of the ornate detailing, like the crown molding and that sort of thing that you will find in these old historic buildings that are very attractive to people in San Francisco. This unit also has a walkout yard, which is also very difficult to achieve. Even in a single family home, it has potential for a rooftop deck, and also has an amazing view from the primary bedroom. I'm Yesenia Rogers, and I've helped hundreds of people like you buy and sell condos. And as someone who lives in a condo myself, I understand the potential pitfalls that you need to avoid. Text or email us to set up a call and we'll answer any of your specific questions. All right, next up, and the third thing you'll want to avoid is not understanding the financials when you're buying a condo. When you're buying a condo, you will get the association documents, including the financials, in advance of making an offer. This way you can review everything in advance, and there are tons of documents and some can be tricky to read or understand. So you'll want to make sure to go through them with your agent to get a clear picture of the HOA's overall finances. There are several documents to review in this disclosure package, but you want to pay extra attention to the annual budget, the reserve study, and the overall amount that's currently in the HOA account, and look out for things like whether there are any major maintenance issues or upcoming repairs in the building, like for example, a roof replacement, or is there exterior paint work needed? And if so, how does that align with the amount that's currently in the HOA account so you can plan for what you may be financially responsible for? or to better understand if you even want to move forward with the purchase based on the maintenance and repairs that is needed and what that might cost you. You'll want to know if there are any upcoming special assessments for maintenance or repairs in the building. Special assessments are an amount that is imposed on the owners for maintenance or repairs because the HOA does not have enough money in the reserves to cover that particular repair. A special assessment can also be unexpected. And so, for example, if a storm hits and now there's a major roof leak and there's not enough money in the reserves to take care of that leak. So as an example of that, if the building needed to repair that roof leak and maybe it caused also issues with the siding and now it's $100,000 expense, you'll want to know if there's enough money in the reserves to pay for this, or will they impose a special assessment to come up with the funds needed to make these repairs? And if so, how much would that be per unit? So for simple math, in a 12-unit building, assuming that all the units are the same size, in that example of a $100,000 repair, it would cost you about $12,000 per unit toward that repair. So you'll want to make sure that you're budgeting for this in advance, or at the very minimum, be aware of upcoming expenses if possible. You'll also want to consider how much are the typical annual expenses and if there is money in reserves to cover these expenses. If not, will there likely continue to be special assessments, or will they plan to increase the HOA dues to build up those reserves so you don't have a special assessment? So you want to factor all of these costs in advance if you can. And you can find all of this information in the disclosure package. In smaller boutique condo buildings like this one, they are generally internally managed by the owner, so there isn't an outside management company. In these buildings, it's typically very informal, and in some cases, there isn't much money, if at all, in the reserve account because maybe the owners may have chosen to keep the HOA dues low and just pay for common area utilities and the general maintenance, like say for instance, a monthly gardener or a cleaner or the building insurance, and then just save on their own for any major building repairs. Some people prefer this to having a higher HOA dues to build up a reserve account because they feel that when they go to sell, they can't take that money with them, and maybe they only plan to hold the home for 5 years, and most of the major building components are in good shape and have a 10+ year life expectancy left. So all in all, these financial documents will show you what you can expect to spend, if anything, on repairs, and an overall view of how well maintained the building is and how well it's run. Up on the list is not understanding the house rules, otherwise known as the CC&Rs, can negatively impact your living situation. The most common things to review in these house rules and CC&Rs are: what is the rental policy for the building? If you're considering renting it down the road, a lot of these buildings do have restrictions on leasing the units, and they largely want to avoid owners doing Airbnb. So if there is generally a minimum time frame in which you can rent it for, it's anywhere from a minimum of 30 days and up to 1 year. And in some cases, some condo buildings don't allow for rentals at all. Or if they do, they may only allow for a percentage of the building that can be rented at any given time. So if you're an investor and you're looking to buy a condo as a rental, you'll definitely want to get clear on what the rental rules are in advance of writing your offer so you understand the rental policy. The next thing that people really want to understand is, what is a building's pet policy? Often they restrict the number of pets per unit or their weight. So you certainly don't want to buy a condo only to discover that your furry friend isn't welcome. Sometimes there is also architectural design committee that restricts the types of renovations you can do to your unit. So depending on what your plan is, you may want to consider this in advance. You own the walls in your building, but there are things behind these walls like electrical, support posts, vertical plumbing, and that sort of thing. So you can't just open up the walls. You need to make sure that the renovations you are considering, that they are possible in advance. So you can make a decision if that specific condo is right for you based on the information provided in the disclosure package before you even write an offer. So as you can see, there is just a lot more to consider when you're buying a condo against a single family home, and some unexpected costs that you might want to be aware of in advance. Now, living in a condo is not all that bad. Seriously, I love it. And this condo is a great alternative, but knowing what you're getting yourself into is crucial, and we'd love to be your go-to real estate source. So subscribe to our channel for more content like this.